BNB, kind of that STR, short-term rental space, it is a hot button right now in real estate investing. It's like everyone's trying to get into it. Everyone's trying to figure out, how to get into it. There's, news on it literally every single day. There's, regulation coming out on it. If they're trying to regulate things that people are making money doing it. So it's like, kind of this perfect storm right now. And it is a major, major buzzword. You guys are the professionals, and you guys are probably still learning new things every day. Obviously, just having your, ear to the grindstone out there. Question I often get asked, and I'm going to refer this actually directly back to you guys, is, and I don't have the answer. This is not my space. Now, I'm around a lot of folks that do have short-term rentals, and I know that you guys are a phenomenal resource. But if I'm just getting out of the gate, how am I analyzing a deal? If I'm utilizing your coaching, how are you guys analyzing a deal? So I'm looking at 123 Oak Street. I found it, 3 miles from me. How did I find it? How did I identify it? How am I breaking it down at that point? If you guys could kind of just do a soup to nuts, kind of inception to, the final deal on what that would look like, I think that that's really going to help the audience and kind of give people an indication of kind of what that process looks like.
Certainly, and it's a really important question, and the way you've asked it is also really important. So yeah, we're happy to break that down. So there's a lot of different variables and components that go into an analysis because ultimately, as we mentioned on the other interview with the couple that we had on talking about their experience, the way we've evolved and come to the point we're at in our business, our main point of focus is we want to focus more on quality than quantity of units, right? So you can get a lot more bang for your buck by just having the right kinds of deals versus just having a lot of them, right? Now, there's value in both, of course. It all depends on your strategy. But before you get into the short-term rental market, there's 5 different components that you want to definitely consider and really start to do your initial analysis on. Now, we want to caution anyone that is getting into this. You also want to be mindful that we're not getting stuck in something that we call analysis paralysis, okay? Because what ends up happening is sometimes by trying to do your analysis, you get kind of bogged down in researching and fact finding, and you're trying to find all the different bits of information. That what ends up happening for a lot of people is they just don't end up doing anything at all, which is, that's also not helpful or valuable.
Yeah. So as Michael said, there's 5 areas that we're really looking at when we're looking at a potential short-term rental. And the biggest thing, and we go through this in our training too, but just at a high level, we can go through all the different areas, because it's really important before you invest into a market or a short-term rental or kind of business, you have to make sure it works. Right? And it works for the type of deal structure that you're looking for. But first and foremost, will it work in the area that you're looking to expand in?
So number 1 is assessing market regulations, because you brought up an important point that, this has really become an industry in the last, very much so in the last several years. And because it's, Airbnb by its nature is a very disruptive technology to traditional lodging, governments around the world are really wrestling and grappling with, well, how do we actually govern and regulate this? Because there are absolute benefits and upside to people that get into this, but there's also things we need to be aware of too. So the first thing before you get into a deal is you need to understand the regulations and really decide what sandbox are you going to play in and where are you actually going to set up and pursue your business, because there are certain things you need to be aware of so that you don't go down the path of doing all the work and doing all the setup. Because like we talked about in previous videos, all the work in this business is front loaded. It takes time and energy to get a place set up. And you don't want to do all that work if you find out at the 11th hour, you're not able to operate the business there. So what type of regulations do we need to be aware of? Well, there could be zoning restrictions. So in certain markets, in certain counties, in certain cities, you might not be able to operate your short-term rental in a certain zoning. maybe it's zoned for residential and you can't have any kind of commercial activity present there.
Yeah, there could be regulations around, occupancy, like primary occupancy, like does the owner have to be on site? There could be the ways of a short-term rental license, right? It could just be a license and getting that permission first and foremost, right? And have maybe an inspection of the property. Like it's all dependent on the area. So you have to do that research beforehand before you invest and put all that time into setting one up. And then, and then going back and be like, oh crap, I can't do it from this area, right? So this is the very first thing you need to be doing before you set up.
Yeah, and real quick, a couple points that you guys made there. First and foremost there, I mean, the devil's in the details. I don't care what kind of business you're operating inside of. This one is no different. The devil is absolutely in the details, guys. So if you think you're going to go out there and just get a house and all of a sudden you've got it popped up on the market, VRBO, Airbnb, whatever booking sites you're going to put it out there on, you're mistaken because you can get shut down very quickly. Regulations are coming, so you want to make sure that you do your due diligence, like they're saying here right now, before you get yourself in hot water. And then, Michael, you made a really valid point about that paralysis by analysis. And I do a lot of real estate investing, and I've got folks on my team that make those initial phone calls, and some of them, particularly the ones that are new, it's that 2,000-pound phone. Can't pick it up because I need to research square footage and beds and baths and lot size. I said, it's all right there in front of you on the computer. This is the criteria. Just pick up the phone. Otherwise you're doing 5, 10, 15. Well, let me go out. I'll just go drive by the house. Well, what the heck do you need to drive by the house for, right? So they do all this research and then only to pick up the phone, and then no one answers, right? So you did 15 minutes worth of research to not even connect with someone, if in fact you ever do pick up the phone. So valid point, guys, this is a contact sport. Make no mistake about it. So if you're watching this from home, you may already know or are aware that you are phone averse, right? You are reluctant to pick up the phone. You know that about yourself. That's one reason more, if you want to get involved in a business like this, that you need coaching like Michael and Katrina offer at BNB Bootcamp. They give you the scripts. They teach you how to talk to people. They get you out of their shell. Nothing brings you out of your shell more and makes you communicate more than product knowledge. So that training component, that coaching component, the scripting. So don't discount yourself just because you think that you're terrified of the phone right now. You're terrified of it because you don't know what you don't know. You don't have the coaching, the training, and the scripting behind you. So don't let that disqualify you. Reach out to these folks anyways and see if you're a good fit. Now, over the course of that, you might find that that's going to be prohibitive for you. But these guys have trained up multiple folks that came in very reluctant. Am I correct in assuming that?
Well, and I think you had a really nice metaphor in how you described it. Sometimes, for people that that activity of reaching out to strangers, having conversations, facing the potential of rejection, the phone can seem like that 2,000-pound, 10,000-pound thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, we have worked with, people that are literally 18 years old all the way up into their 70s. And
Mm-hmm.
the bottom line is, like, if someone is willing to learn, they're willing to try something different and willing to do different things, it's a learnable skill, and it's a skill that should be learned. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I really wanted to touch on that because I think that's an important component, and particularly one that people are watching and thinking, maybe this is something I can't do. So I wanted to kind of reel that back into that. So get you guys back on track for the deal breakdown, the deal analysis, how you guys are dissecting these. So.
Yeah. So first things first, if we analyze the market, it's a good market, we're in the right zoning, or, we understand the licenses, anything like that. Next thing is you have to look for potential short-term rentals. So it depends on the deal structure that you're doing. So, are you doing rental arbitrage? Are you doing, partnerships, anything like that, and looking for those type of deals? So essentially you got to do the research of what's available, because that's part of this component too. What's actually available? Are you going to use your own place, your own rentals, right? How do you analyze those deals? Or are we looking for, other people's properties, right? Are we doing rental arbitrage? Are we doing partnerships? So when we're looking at that, it's like, what's actually available in the market, right? Basement suites, houses, rooms to rent, right? And start looking to see the actual available inventory, looking on Facebook Marketplace, looking on Kijiji, Craigslist, any of those.
Yeah. So, the number one thing is finding out what the regulations are, deciding what sandbox we're going to play. And number two is deciding what business model you want to apply to this opportunity. Are you, because Katrina said, are you going to own the property? Are you going to do rental arbitrage? Or are you going to potentially partner? All methods are valid, but you have to decide which one makes the most sense for your personal situation and what path do you want to pursue. Okay. Now, getting to the third point is once you have determined what makes the most sense for your situation, part of analysis and research is you have to measure the inputs and outputs. Business is the game of having money come in and then having money go out, and then what's left over at the end of the day. So what is the profit potential in the business or the model that you're pursuing? Okay.
So do the analysis of the profit potential, looking at other Airbnbs, using some tools, being like, okay, yeah, the income potential for this type of property is X. And these are always going to be preliminary and conservative type numbers. But if it works conservatively, then, at the very base minimum, it's going to be profitable. That's the biggest thing.
So part of our training is we show people, okay, so let's just say, for example, you're pursuing rental arbitrage. The idea there is we're renting a property as if we were a tenant, but then we're selling the nights individually at a higher price than what it costs us to pay the rent on a monthly basis. Wonderful, great. So we're going to have rent. We're going to have probably utilities, unless you get something that's utilities are included. You're going to have supplies. You're going to have cleaning costs, all these different components. So what we want to show you how to do is get what that monthly number looks like and then break it down into a daily cost, because you can't know how much you're able to charge unless you know what it costs you to run your business every single day. When you know how much it costs to run your business every single day, then you can see, well, how much income potential exists in my particular market and on this particular type of property.
Looking at comparables, essentially, that you need to look at, right? So doing that analysis, running the numbers, doing the math before you even get into that deal to see if it actually makes sense.
And this is part of the training you guys go into with them, part of the coaching?
Yeah.
First thing.
Yeah. So all the different steps here, we go into a lot of detail of how we actually break this down to make it very systematic, kind of step by step. But these are important things you need to know before,
you're investing.
It's not as simple as just throwing a dart at a board and then, you're off to,
works.
we want to be more intentional and systematic about what.
That's a great word. Intentional is a great word when it comes to stuff like this. If you're just out there kind of throwing spaghetti at the walls and hoping, some of it sticks, you can get upside down very quickly. That's certainly not the way to make long-term money. You might, kind of strike while the iron's hot a couple times, can hit lightning in the bottle once or twice. But if you're looking for consistency, obviously that just being intentional. I love that word. Don't use it enough. I'm going to steal that from you. But sorry to interrupt. Keep going though, Michael. Love that.
And I think that's really good. What you're saying is quality over quantity. We've talked about that time and time again. You want to make sure you have the quality and the income potential with the minimal amount of units, right? You can play the volume game and have a whole bunch of units that have minimal income, or you can just intentionally choose those profitable units that you want to go after because the profit margins are there.
Yeah, and I think that there's probably just a level of headache that comes along with some lower end properties. And I'm speaking from personal experience now. I'm not talking about the short-term rental space, but as a long-term, buy and hold investor, I started ultimately gravitating towards higher dollar homes because obviously the maintenance and things like that were less cumbersome, but the headaches with a higher priced home, a kind of a higher dollar buyer, or renter are going to be less than someone that has much less skin in the game. So, I gravitated out of those lower end houses, even though there's money to be made there, because the amount of headaches that went along with that were not offset by the profit. So, that was not a good exchange time for dollars whatsoever. And it sounds like you guys are teaching that from the outset. I had to learn that the hard way over time.
Yeah, the term I like to use to describe what you just outlined there is the headache to income ratio, because everything is always going to, no matter what you're taking on, there's always going to be certain levels of headaches that go along. Now,
that's business.
If the headaches are progressing into migraines and you're not making very much money having migraines, well, then it's probably not worth pursuing and doing in the first place. So
right.
Now this leads us to the fourth component of research. And, it's as they say, the oldest rule in real estate: location, location, location. Now,
Mhm.
let's preface that because in our experience, we've had short-term rentals in a lot of different and varying types of locations. So I want to qualify that depending on what it is, of course, most locations with short-term rentals, again, assuming we're in the right zoning and regulatory environment, all that different kind of stuff, most locations will work. However, what we have discovered in our experience of doing this, there are certain locations and certain markets where if you do the exact same activity, the income potential is vastly higher than other areas.
So when we're looking at location, essentially there's a few key things you just want to look at. Okay, what kind of amenities are you close by, right? Like, are you close by some kind of, like, are you close to the Eiffel Tower? Like, what are you close to? Like, what kind of, why are people going to stay there? Are you close to maybe downtown, right? Where there's a lot of business meetings? Are you close to like a concert hall? Like, what is the amenities close by and why would people want to stay? So putting yourself in the shoes of the guest, right? Why would someone want to stay here? What are you close to? And another just an easy way to look at, are there hotels in the area? Now, that's not always an indicator, but typically if a hotel is willing to invest millions of dollars to build, in that area, they've done the heavy research of knowing the demand is there and people want to stay for some sort of reason, right? So if there's hotels in the area, it's usually a good signal that there is demand.
Got it. Now, is seasonality obviously a factor that you guys bring into play also?
It is definitely a component that needs to be looked at. So, and that's, you read our mind in terms of what goes into it.
I'm really good at that.
So that is, so that leads us to our next point. So we want to evaluate seasonality and the ebbs and flows of any particular market that you're getting into. So now let's break this down and quantify it, because there are some markets where this is really not it's just really not a component of that market. So for example, there are certain places in Texas, like Dallas as an example, seasonality is really not as noticeable as it would be, where we live in Edmonton, Alberta. In the summertime here, that's like, although Christmas is in December, summertime is our Christmas, because those are the prime money-making months in our particular market. Now, having said that, when we go into the wintertime, there's still money to be made. It's just the strategies that you'll utilize are just a little bit different in how you're going to get your calendar full and get your bookings, right?
Yeah. So it is very market specific, because seasonality is so different. For instance, our place in Arizona, in the winter, that's our hot season. In the summer, it's like a microwave there. So that's the slow season. So, it's kind of, that can balance your portfolio as well when you're in multiple markets. And then that is just like, as a side note, is one of the best things we love about a short-term rental business. You can set up anywhere. You don't have to be in that location to make sure it works. And you can do this from anywhere in the world. So when we're looking at seasonality, it really is market specific. We have another one in a mountain town. The thing is, summer is really hot, but also winter. So that one's a really good balanced market, because you get both seasons in there, because they're skiing in the winter, hiking in the summer. Like, it just booms in both seasons. So the slower seasons are the fall and spring, right? And how to mitigate those. So that's the kind of analysis that you really do need to do, that upfront research to see, like, what's the income potential. And that's why that brings us back to the measuring the inputs and outputs and assessing your market, even from the beginning.
Yeah, no, I love that, guys. And that should show our audience at home, stepping into this, they're walking right into a blueprint. So having that roadmap for success, not having to recreate the wheel, not having to invent the wheel on their own, be that kind of one-man show. Obviously, that would be very daunting. You've got really the 5 key things that they need to do with your involvement, obviously, right out of the gate, in order to be successful, in order to go in eyes wide open, so that they can, and mistakes are going to be made. It is business. It doesn't matter, what level of business you're in. There's going to be certain mistakes that are going to be made. So let's just go on record and say that. But when you can minimize those mistakes, and you can mitigate mistakes from happening, obviously you're going to have a leg up. That's what these guys bring to the table. If you guys are interested in at least having a phone call with someone on their team, go ahead and email BNB Bootcamp. That's BNB Bootcamp at VIPfinancialeducation.com. Someone from Michael and Katrina's team are going to take or return your phone call. Actually, send that email over. In the subject line, include BNB Bootcamp conversation, include your first name, your last name, in the body, as well as your phone number. And if there's a best time to reach you, they'll get back in touch with you right away. If you want us to continue to bring Michael and Katrina and folks like this back here on the channel, we love bringing like-minded people that just add tremendous value to the experience on here, we hope. If you feel the same way, go ahead and smash that thumbs up below. That helps out our algorithms, lets us know we're doing right by y'all. If you are a subscriber, thanks for joining us. If not, ding that subscribe and go ahead and hit that bell notification below if you want more updates as we bring additional content like this on the VIP Financial Education YouTube channel, where we talk about all things credit, capital, and cash flow. Until next time, thanks for joining us and make it a great day.